I've sung the praises of Made In Cookware for a while now. I own many pieces myself. Now Made In has changed nonstick cookware for good with their ceramic-clad pans. They're premium stainless pans with next-gen ceramic coating free of harmful materials. Beautiful, even cooking, and easy to clean. It's even oven safe up to 550 degrees. How do I know how great they are? I added one to my kitchen. Don't need a nonstick pan? Made In has pots, cutlery, bakeware, glassware, and everything you need. Take your home cooking to the next level by upgrading your cookware by going to unitedwedrink.com/madein, MADEIN. Find out why pros trust Made In. Go to unitedwedrink.com/madein and upgrade your kitchen and cooking today. The opinions and statements in this podcast do not represent those of the host's employers, co-workers, family, or imaginary friends. Now enjoy the show.
Happy hour, more like amateur hour. Welcome to United We Drink.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to a brand new episode of the United We Drink podcast right here on unitedwedrink.com, as well as Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and wherever fine podcasts are found. My name is Mike Urevich, and I have a little jump in my step. It's more of a hop. It's actually like a skip, but it's just a mild extra pace. There's really no hop. I'm normal speed.
I think you actually might be ill. Have you been to see someone recently?
Oh, no. I don't go to doctors. They inject you with 5G. That's what they do.
Listen, Mike, you cannot say stuff like that because there's one person listening going, "Oh, they believe that too." It's like when I found out recently that another brewer, someone that owns a brewery in Florida, is a flat earther, and I was like, "Oh wow!" And I mean, not for jokes, right? Like not like like to troll people. Like no, he believes the Earth is flat. It's like, oh man, they're really out there. It's not just on the internet.
Yeah, I can't wait to find out who that is off air because I need to know who to avoid, I guess, in the future. So yeah, it's me, it's Mike J. Here with Kevin. Tim will be joining us momentarily. I feel like that's a way shows work sometimes. Like joining us in a moment will be such and such person. He was on assignment in the field, and he's coming back with some really exciting news.
With some really biting social commentary. It's almost like drive time radio. What we really are doing is we're going to do a 9-hour show, and then we're going to periodically check in with different people throughout the day.
Wait a minute. I think I have some soundboard clips here. Let's see if this works. Hopefully that comes through in the recording. I don't know if the Discord sounds will come through, but we will find out in post.
I mean, I heard it. If that's any inclination of anything else, but it'll be like when Gilbert Gottfried would join Howard Stern for a couple hours. What's how Tim's gonna check in with us today?
Oh, so we're gonna get an aristocrats joke later on. Sweet.
I think we should force him to make jokes.
So some brewers came into a talent agency, and you can get really fucking raunchy with brewer related stuff in there.
I'm sure you can, Mike. I think you should let your imagination run wild.
Okay, so we're not going to do that. Kevin, what are you drinking tonight, sir?
You look like you're drinking whiskey, which I respect completely. I have another beer from Dock Street. I've had a couple beers from them over the last couple weeks. This is the Bohemian Pilsner. So I'm drinking through those beers that were given to me by my friend Mark. And I've also got, as my backups, I've got Yards Gold. And I've got Victory's Brotherly Love Hazy IPA. That was not given to me by Mark, but I found a mix pack and wanted to do one of the beers for Old Favorite Friday, and that was in there, and I hadn't tried it yet.
Oh shit! What they're because I only see monkey stuff from Victory down here. I did find before the Super Bowl they had the Tasty Cake candy cake porter at a little indie market by me, but like I never see Prima. I never see any of their IPA stuff. So what's in the mix pack?
I got it for Dirt Wolf. So they had Dirt Wolf.
Dirt Wolf is so good.
I did it for Old Favorite Friday a couple weeks ago, I think. And so though that and this hazy were the ones I was most interested in. They had one called Juicy Monkey, which
okay, it's in really, the monkey brand. Yeah.
Yeah, I really wasn't all that. I mean, I haven't had it yet, so I'm not. Let's just say I didn't buy it for that. I hope I'll be pleasantly surprised with it, but that's not why I got it. I think it might have been. I can't remember what the fourth brand was, but these
it was all IPA related stuff.
I believe so. But no, I've been fiending for some Prima or Hop Devil or something of that nature, but just don't. It's one of the things I say. I say it over and over again. We just don't get them down here anymore, and then I have to remind myself. I don't even know if they're still in production with those beers. I mean, with those
Prima
two,
still is.
Okay.
Hop Devil, I don't believe is.
See, there you go. I do. Some of these beers, I assume, are just going to be legacy beers forever, and they get discontinued.
Yeah, and Dirt Wolf, I don't even think is year round anymore. I could be wrong, but I think they moved that to a seasonal. But man, that is one of my favorite double IPAs.
It's real good, and I just realized, and the reason why I did it because I wanted to do it in the past, but it wasn't quite old enough, and it's now like 10 years old as of this year, so that's why I was able to do it for.
I was. And where did you find that at Total Wine?
Total Wine, yeah.
Okay, I'll have to next time I check there.
I mean, I always say it on Old Favorite Friday, and I mentioned it here a lot. It's really the only place I shop for beer because it's the only place near the brewery in Boca that has a really good craft beer selection. There's just some Whole Foods have some decent beers, some Fresh Markets have some decent beer, but nothing that I wouldn't have already done over the past 3 years of doing the show. So it's really my only option. And sometimes the pickings get slim, and I'm like, okay, am I going to find something else? And then, oh, wait a minute. I realize I haven't done like Chimay Blue. Oh, great. I haven't done Chimay Blue in 3 years. I can do this.
I want to see the spreadsheet someday that of all of the beers, because I bet that's pretty crazy.
Strangely enough, as the spreadsheet king, I do have that. I have it organized alphabetically and chronologically so that I can go back through.
Yeah, you can always sort by field.
Well, I could do that, but I've just physically done it.
You've done two different spreadsheets?
Yes.
Kevin, you don't have to do that.
I started doing it in the very beginning, and then I just
have different columns.
Oh, I'm aware. I'm aware of how to do this, but then then it would mess with my flow.
And I am certainly not here to mess with flow.
And we're flowing here on United We Drink.
That is one thing that someone once said, this podcast flows. I could be that was so long ago. I could be confusing that with this podcast sucks, but I think they said flows.
That's only when I came on, so not beforehand.
It was right around the same time, give or take. I am drinking whiskey. I'm drinking bourbon. To be specific, I'm having Mitchers. I decided it's not one that I typically have in my house, but I've liked this in the past. And last time I was at Total Wine, I was like, I think it was like $42, $43. It wasn't more than 45. And I was like, you know what? I'll splurge a little bit. I usually don't go over like 35 for a bottle of bourbon, which usually gives me like Jefferson's or Woodford. I don't think usually in that range, but I was feeling a little good about myself, and I'm like, oh, I'll treat myself to an extra $10 on a bottle of bourbon, and I like it. I was sipping it while you were explaining your beers, and I was like, there's a note in this that I don't feel like I usually get in bourbons.
Toothpaste.
Oh yeah, I did brush my teeth just a bit ago.
Oh no, I actually snuck into your house and put toothpaste in all your bourbon bottles.
Con. Uh, but no, like I don't know what I'm talking about. It's just super vanilla-y, like which just makes it really easy to drink. But yeah, I decided. I don't know why. I just wanted to. I had a couple beers with you earlier on today, and your dad, our number one fan. You came by the brewery and had lunch and beers with us, so that was a fun little time. So I was like, you know what? Had a couple beers. Let me have some whiskey for this podcast episode.
Well, that's important for everyone to know. For all the Kevin's dad's fans from our podcast, he is in Florida, has been spending about a week with me. And we've been going around, went to Barrel of Monks, hung out there yesterday, went to Copper Point because he's like, I got to go to Copper Point. He really wanted to see you and check the place out. And we went over there for lunch today. It was very nice. You were very hospitable. I really love the Everflow IPA. It was really good. I had that and then always got to have a lager because I love lager. So that was pretty cool.
Awesome. Yeah, I'm glad that your dad enjoyed the loggers, and great to see him. I haven't seen him since your wedding in what was that 2016?
It's funny because he made the mention that he listens to us all the time. So it's kind of like it's a more milder version in some ways of like when you listen to like your favorite podcast, like Penn Sunday School. I listen to Penn Sunday School twice a week. Well, I guess not anymore. It's back to once a week, but I used to be twice a week for like 10 years. And you kind of get to like feel like you know the person and they're a complete stranger to you. And it's kind of interesting for you because you haven't seen him since my wedding almost 10 years ago, but he listens to your voice all the time.
Yeah, I feel like he is more aware of me than I like, and knows more about what's going on with me than I do with him. it's a strange one-way relationship.
Well, that's it. He's asked a lot of questions about like, oh, how did you get to know Tim? And how did he'll ask about a guest. And I always say, and sometimes it's not accurate, but it's my best answer is, oh, Mike met him on beer Twitter, and then they became friends and they went from having a digital relationship to talking or whatever it is from time to time. So sometimes those one-way relationships become two-way relationships. And
Yeah.
I think that can be more healthy depending on the person.
I would say two-way relationships are the best kind of relationships.
Depending on the person.
Outside of 21-way relationships. That is the magic number I have found.
I think that only happens on the severed floor.
This is true. Would you like to know more about your Audi, Kevin?
I would be fine, by the way, because we're still waiting for Tim to join us. I'd be fine turning this into a Severance podcast, at least for a couple weeks to go over our theories.
Let's go. It is my favorite show on TV right now. I don't really want to get into it because Tim said that he should be here at like any minute now. But tell me, you guys just had your 10-year anniversary, right?
Yep.
How was the event?
It went well, for years, and your 10-year anniversary is coming up. So you may be going through some of this. And you guys do a little bit more than we do as far as like festivities, I feel like, at your events, or maybe that's just my perception. But we struggle with this now and have for years. It's like, what are we going to do? Well, we're going to have a bunch of beer and we're going to tell people to come and drink the beer. And then we're going to release a couple new beers. What else? Well, I don't know there's anything else to do. We're not going to do a silent disco in 2025 because no one cares about that. And yeah, we'll have some live music, but people are just going to ignore it. And we're not going to do a dunk tank like we did back in the day. And we're not going to do a slip and slide and all these gimmicks that we tried to use. And so because of that, our events have probably petered out in a large way over the past 3 to 5 years, where the diehards come out, but it's not that much different than a normal day for us. Well, this was a 10-year anniversary, so I think people were a little bit more engaged. I think our social media team did a much better job with promoting this than they had in the past and our previous company did in the past. And we ended up doing, $2,000 more that day than we did the same our anniversary party last year, which was encouraging. More people
That's
came
great.
out.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was more widely attended. And I think Eric Sheffer, who is actually no longer with us, but he was our taproom manager for the last 8 years. That was basically his last day. He did a really good job. We did a vintage beer tasting booth, essentially, where if you had an all-you-can-drink ticket, you could try all these vintage beers, which I think was a really good idea, and people got really engaged with it. But it was nice. It felt good to go through and have a 10-year anniversary, feel good about yourself that you made it that long, especially with all the breweries closing around us. So it was pretty cool.
Yeah, I thought it was really cool leading up to it, seeing all the posts about the vintage beers in on your social. There was some that popped up that I'm like, oh man, I remember about that. Like the one that you guys did with Seventh Son. I'm like, oh, there is a, I don't even remember what the name of the beer was, but like I remember seeing that label. That was like year one that you guys did that beer.
It was year 2. It was called Monk de Soleil, and that was Phil Palmisano. He obviously had a great relationship with the guys over at Seventh Son, and he put that whole thing together. We did it at the brewery, and the beer was really good. It was for those of you who don't know everything about Barrel of Monks Brewing, which is all of you, it was basically an Orval clone. So it was just a really classic Belgian style beer that turned out really well. And still, by the way, it's 8 years old. It's still drinking
The
really well to this
the
day.
Brett beer, right?
Yeah. Mhm.
So it changes in that bottle over time.
Oh yeah. So yeah, it was nice to pop some of those open. We only had a couple duds. We had a couple beers from like the 10-year-old triple. That was past. That was a drain pour. But some of the other ones that were 8, 9 years old were drinking just fabulously. We had a 9-year-old quad that was delicious.
Ooh, nice. I now that I think of it, I think your anniversary also fell on Orval Day, uh, which is it's interesting that you had that beer available for it.
It's funny that so much of this comes down to, and I know we got a different topic to talk about today, but the idea that 10, 15 years ago, these events were so prized. A brewery had an anniversary party. Even if you weren't a big fan of the brewery, you had to go because there was guest drafts and everyone in the community, the beer community was going to be there. And, these people would just rock and roll those days. People are so burnt out of these events because there's so many opportunities to go drink beer, whether it's the craft beer festival that's still happening every other weekend in a 30-minute drive away from you, or a new brewery opening across the street, that it's hard to get people excited. And I mean, I remember when a Dogfish Head tap takeover with one new beer that we hadn't had before would get 40 people to come to Coffee District,
Yeah.
which is a small place, and Chung would do insane business that day. And now, something like Orval Day, where I know that Matt Manthe for my other brewery, Odd Breed, would do something for that every year and actually get people to come in years and years ago. Then the last time he did it or whatever was like no one showed up because where's the uniqueness? It's all gone. It's evaporated.
When we lived in Philly, so we just happened to go into Monk's Cafe one Saturday afternoon. We were up in the Rittenhouse area, and I was like, "Oh, let's stop in for a beer." My thought was like, "Oh, let me go have a blind pig while I'm here." It's like the place to get a Russian River beer in the city, and I'm like, "Oh, I see on the menus Orval Day. They have bottles of Orval and vintage bottles of Orval. Like there was like a 10-year one, I think like a 5-year one, and I was like, you know what? I haven't had an Orval in so fucking long. I'm just gonna get a bottle of the OG like Orval. So I step up to the bar, I order one, and some guy sitting at the bar, he goes, "You got to get the 10-year one, man." I'm like, "Nah, I'm good with getting just the regular one. Like I haven't had it in a long time." He's like, "But it's so much better." I'm like, "I haven't had a regular Orval in probably at least 5 years. So I just want to enjoy that." Like, "Man, you got to have it." I'm like, "Dude, let me drink what I want to fucking drink."
You got to get it. How about that? You do, and then leave me alone, strange human.
And he was drinking it. And I was just like, "You enjoy your day, dude." Like, it's such the weirdest fucking thing. Like the bartender's not even trying to upsell me. A fucking customer is trying to upsell me on shit. And I'm like, you don't get anything from this.
At the risk of going off on a tangent, and we do have a topic plan, but maybe we'll do this too. But I'll ask you a question that has been on my mind recently, and what we're talking about here just kind of brings it to the forefront. Is that I wonder sometimes I wonder if just I left the craft beer community, so I don't really know what they want anymore. But if that is not the case, because I'm still involved, obviously, but I'm just not in the kind of like uber beer nerd culture I used to be in. But I used to feel like the people that were so into it, where like the internet meme is like, you turn 30 and you have to like get into craft beer to replace your personality or whatever it is. I feel like those people from my generation of beer drinkers really wanted to drink everything, and it was about the tickers, right? You wanted to try everything, which has its own problems, but we wanted to try everything from breweries that we didn't even love, because it was like, "Oh, maybe it'll be a hidden gem," you know? I remember like, and it's early on, but being excited that someone brought like a Tommyknocker beer that I hadn't had before, because 'cause I'm like, "Oh, maybe this is gonna be good," when those beers were rarely, if ever, good. Whereas I think then people got into this, like, and this is my perception, I wanna know if this is yours, more than the pastry stout, smoothie sour stuff, it feels like people gravitated more towards, like, extreme rarity and, like, prestige, at least in feel, breweries, and not towards the new beer aspect of it. And that's where I feel like the industry jumped the shark in some way, because those people that otherwise would be like, "Oh yeah, Barrel of Monks is doing 5 different treatments of a beer and 2 new beers. I'm gonna come out and maybe I'm gonna like them." It was like, "Oh yeah, I don't drink that Barrel of Monks stuff."
I get what you are throwing out there, and I think that there's some credibility to that. Uh, because there was so much of that. There were breweries down here that opened based on building a rareness from the get go. Like if they wanted to be this rare thing that the hype built around them from the get go, and they thought that was going to run their business. One of those is out of business now. Another one, I mean, I don't even know how well they're doing. They're putting out regular beers that you can find in on the shelves, but I don't know how well those actually do. But I wonder if those people question their business plans. But getting back to the thing at hand, I myself never really felt like I wanted to get these beers for rarity. I thought of having a rare beer, a quote unquote rare beer, as something special and as like, oh, this is a treat. But when it all boiled down, I love trying beers that I've never had, whether it is from a brewery who I don't know, that I do know really well, that I know mildly. Like even breweries like you brought up Tommy Knocker, and I'm not gonna throw anyone under the bus here. Even like in those bottle share situations, like, oh hey, here's a beer from a brewery who I've never been super thrilled by, but I've never had this beer. Let me give it a try. Like maybe this will be something. Like I rarely just like wrote a brewery off unless they did something like absolutely egregious, and that was usually something on a social standpoint. There were breweries locally who made bad beer who I wrote off, and I just would not go there because they made bad beer. But man, I just like still to this day, I love trying new beers. Like when we go to Dixie Bar and Grill, like they haven't had any of their own beers for a little while as they're building out their new brewery next door. But man, like they always have something new and interesting on, and I'm like, man, I want to try that. Like I want to try that, and it's one thing that keeps me going in this industry is that I still have an appreciation and an urge to try new stuff and learn and expand my palate and be like, oh, look at this. Look at this. This is great. This isn't great. What can I learn from this that can maybe translate over to a brand in the future for us? Or for anyone that I potentially work for in the future. Um, it's, yeah, it was to me about trying something new. It never was about. I wasn't a ticker. Like I may be a ticker in the fact of like I'll make notes for myself on Untapped. Like if it's a new beer that I use Untapped just as I think I said this before, as a journaling thing for myself. I don't rate anything anymore. I just, if there's a beer that I like, I will check it in so that I can go back and remind myself of like, what was that beer that I had from that? Oh, that's what it is. Um, but I just still enjoy the journey. Now I don't go out of my way as much as I did. Like, yeah, we used to go to Coffee District multiple times a week um, for tap takeovers. Go to Buddha, go to Lodge, go to wherever to for these events. I don't go that crazy anymore. It's mostly Dixie and sometimes stuff that I get at Whole Foods or Total Wine, and then when I travel. Uh, but man, I still do just love trying new stuff.
And there was a problem with that for the industry because there's only so much new stuff you can do, right?
Yeah,
If you only, and I'm not saying you're like this or I'm like this, but if you're only wanting new stuff, so that you're only going to try, even if it's a commercial big brand like Sierra Nevada, I'm never going to buy Pale Ale. I'm never going to buy Torpedo. I'm just going to buy whatever the new seasonal is that they just came out with. Well, then, yeah, it's hard to support the industry in that way because breweries get burnt out and there's only so much stuff you can do. But in a lot of ways, and this is bias, right? This is coming from a person with that mindset. So of course I'm going to think it's the right mindset or a better mindset, whatever that means. But at least you're interested in everything out there and you're willing to try this stuff from Dock Street that you spoke very highly of. And of course, it was given to me by someone that I know, but I didn't know this brewery from any other brewery in the world. I saw Bohemian Pilsner, Doppelbock, and I think another Pilsner, another relatively what a lot of people would consider mundane styles. And I was thrilled and excited to try these beers because they're a brand new brewery that I've never heard of. And I get a chance to try something like that and I've never lost it. When I see that new 6-pack or that mix pack from Sierra Nevada with all the new beers in it, I'm going to get it because I want to try those beers. Even if they're variations on an IPA, and maybe even at this point, my palate can't tell the difference between this one and that one, I'm excited to do that. And maybe I'm missing it in the current beer culture, but it just doesn't seem to be as much of that anymore.
yeah.
And much more of a much more of like a teams kind of thing. Like, oh, I don't drink that stuff. And by the way, I am a victim of that mentality for my business. I'm also a beneficiary from that because there are people that come to our brewery 3 nights a week, buy all of our special releases, and they say, "Oh, we don't go to this other brewery." I've had conversations with people before, Mike, about Copper Point. And just, off the top of my head, "Oh, had you tried this new one?" I think I was telling somebody, just probably a year ago now, or whenever you designed the Bee Squeeze can. And I was like, "Oh, you should really check this out. My buddy's over there. He's doing all the artwork. The beers are great." And they're like, "Yeah, I don't mess around with those guys. They're not very good." And I go, "Well, you can say it's not your cup of tea, but you can't question the quality. Like you can say I don't like Thai food, but you can't go to a a 4-star Thai restaurant and say their food's bad. You can just say, yeah, I don't like that flavor. And as that there are people that are feeling that we're the team they're on and another brewery is not. And I can say unequivocally, the beer is just as good. And also you're doing beer styles that we're doing in a very similar way and sometimes, so it's kind of strange that they would not like it.
So, two things there. One is like I've heard criticisms of our place before, and there's some of them that are valid. And and just to not try to say that I'm blowing shit off, like I've heard people say that if you've gone there once, you've gone there a million times. That some of our tap list is very static. I understand that, and I try to nudge it whenever I can, and there's only so much that I can do. But there's regulars that love that about our place. So there's always an argument this way or that way on something like that. You can't throw quality as an issue with us. I will stand here on this box and say that quality is important to us and we do not take that lightly. And that leads into the second point is I don't remember if I've really said this on the show. I probably have, but I've had this discussion with friends. Joel, even specifically, I've had this conversation with, and he does not like it. But I truly do not think that there is such thing as a bad beer unless it is flawed. And there are beers that you do not like. There are beers that your tastes aren't for. That does not make that a bad beer. That beer can be very quality and up to snuff, but if you don't like it, that's a completely different thing. That does not make it a bad beer. To kind of go along with the point that you were saying there, and I'm a true believer in that. There are some times that I sure you can say that this is the stuff. This is a style. Well, it doesn't really fit the guidelines. But is it bad? No. Like, sure, you can make some arguments that a beer that you're calling a Kolsch, it doesn't really have Kolsch-like standards to the full BJCP guidelines. But is it bad? Is it flawed? No. Then it's just not. You're nitpicking, I guess, which is fine in your own book. But yeah, I only judge a bad beer by something that is flawed. Does it have diacetyl all over it? Yes, that is a bad beer. That is flawed. People can debate on that. Nah. Is there acetaldehyde? Is it fucking DMS? Like all of those stuff are flaws that unequivocally should say bad beer to it. But you don't like a West Coast style IPA because it's bitter and piney and grassy. That's not a bad beer. You just don't like it.
Yeah, and we've talked about that a lot over the years. That's been a lot of our issues with things like Untapped because nobody adheres to that at all. It's just if I don't like it, it's bad, and we all are guilty of that in some way. But we're guilty of it maybe with TV shows. Like, oh, this is a crappy TV show because it's not up to the standards that I like a TV show. I think so. I think we do that in some way, shape, or form. Even if you don't do it in beer, you probably do it in something else. So it's human nature to some degree. I'm just really interested in how the culture has evolved, and I'm always going to come at it from a perspective of where I started and where I started in the industry. And there's a little bit of an old man yelling at cloud situation. Like back in my day, people did it this way, and that was somehow better. But I wonder, with the industry shrinking like it is for internal and external factors, I wonder if I don't see there's less craft beer bars than ever. Bars that were doing a ton of craft beer and kind of started dipping their toes in, have retracted right back to doing the same macro beers they were before, with maybe some crafty beers. There's really not that
Or they
many
only
places.
use national brand, like, yeah.
Oh, of course, but even like, it's just that there used to be 3, 4 places in driving distance of us, and this wasn't even at the peak of craft beer in South Florida, where you could go and get a unique special keg of a beer you hadn't had before. And now I can't think of a place to go. I can think of places that have consistent lines of good beer, like Tap 42. They've got some great beers on draft, without a doubt, but they're not rotating in a bunch of specialty new stuff. There used to be 3, 4, 5 retail accounts where you can go and get rare beers that, only 2 cases came down to the area and they grabbed them and snagged them up. Or you could get vintage beers. I can't think of any. They're all chain stores that they get the things that everybody gets, or they're just big enough to have more stuff on the shelf. And I have to believe that so much of that idea of new and different has just migrated to the internet, in trading culture, in things that you can't get in the area, and they've kind of abandoned the idea of beer that you get locally. And this could be my perception, but it feels like that's one of the reasons why there's not as much excitement around beer, because it's almost like it went online, right? Like everything else, you no longer have friends in the flesh. You no longer have breweries you walk into. You no longer have a relationship with a local beer bar that, when their stuff comes in, you've got 20 people you trade with that send you beer. And that's great. I'm happy people have that community. But in the grand scheme of things, that's the kind of culture to me that shifts from the next flavor of the month to the next flavor of the month, to the next flavor of the month, instead of having these consistent breweries that kick out great product and are constantly doing new innovative things.
So here's a thing, a theory, if you will, on some of that is a lot of those people that we used to hang out with at these beer bars, we got into the industry. Like, I mean, you pretty much were when I met you, but I mean, Phil was not, and now like Phil's head of innovation at Monster Brewing Company. He just got a new promotion. But yeah, I was just talking with him the other day. Congratulations, Phil. Like Joel, myself, like I'm trying to think of other Coffee District folks, like Randy. Like it's so many people used to
Brian Torres,
Brian,
Blake.
yeah. Brian Blake, holy shit! I was talking with Brian a few weeks ago. He's a second time daddy now. Congratulations to him too.
Awesome.
He works for Miller Coors. Like there's so many of us that moved into the industry that I think the work consumes so much of us that the hobby or social side of it went out the window. We're like, I work in this now. I don't want to, in my free time now, go to a bar and drink more beer and talk to more beer people about beer. I think that coupled with a lot of us now are family, like family men or family people. Like you have gotten married and had a kid. I've gotten married and have 2 kids. Brian has gotten married and has 2 kids. Like so many of us have created families now that doesn't allow for that sort of thing. Even if we wanted to be social like that, and the abilities to go out to breweries and go out to bars and all of that has cut down considerably. Like we have probably Friday night, maybe one weekend, like a Saturday or Sunday night or a afternoon that we'll go out to eat at a place that has some good beer. Like I've shouted out Dixie many times now on this episode. Dixie's pretty much the place that my kids love to fucking go. Like they love the food there. They love all the stuff on the walls. And we can go there, know that our kids are going to be fine. We can have a good drink, some good food. They always have a fantastic. They are still like that place where I can find that selection of beer. Like this, there's going to be something new. Like I think last week when I went by to even just pick up to go food because one of the boys was being a complete issue, but I went and picked up to go, and I had a hop juju from Fatheads while I was waiting for our to go. They're double IPA, 9% IPA. That beer won gold at GABF in the double IPA category back in like 2012, 2013, something like that. Still an amazing beer. They have like Jubilee from Deschutes on not too long ago. That was a beer that we used to be like, oh, someone got a bottle of that. Like it's still fun like that, but I don't go out of my way for it because I know like, oh, I'm going to probably go there on the weekend and I'll have some options of trying some new stuff. But yeah, I think just family and working in the industry combined has made us like not search, like made that line of business dry up.
Well, and I think I kind of mentioned this a little bit earlier, in the fact that this is my perception, right? Doesn't mean it's correct. And I think what you're saying is, listen, we've evolved, we've changed as people. So there is a possibility that everything I'm saying is bullshit. And there are just as many places doing all this stuff. I just don't know about them because I'm not plugged into that group of people who are in that stage of their exploration of craft beer. Now, in my defense of that, I don't think there are as many places. Like honestly,
Yes,
from a
for sure.
from a bar from a brewery owner who knows where beer is sold, there's just fewer of those. So I think objectively that's true. I also know that when we were drinking, we had people who were family men and women and were, going out and hanging out with us, and it was all ages and things of that nature. So I think there's definitely a little bit of the fact that we're not plugged in like we used to, and there are pockets of people doing those things and talking about beer as passionately and really wanting to explore and try everything and not just hunt after the rare beers or not just being fanboys to one brewery. That's the stuff that I think I see the most often from the outside looking in. And that's what I, for the lack of a better term, think is quote unquote ruining the industry, because that's kind of the negative aspects that I see. But I'm sure there's people that are like me 15, 20 years ago getting into this and tracking down their favorite breweries or being, hey, what's the new Dogfish Head beer? Even though I don't see very many new Dogfish Head beers these days, uh, I know it's out there. I just think as that pool shrinks more and more, it's one of the things squeezing out. It's squeezing out everybody. It's squeezing out giant breweries from doing new and innovative things. It's squeezing out middling breweries from growing. It's squeezing out local breweries, and it's putting us more and more into these boxes where I'm the guy who drinks this beer and all this other beer is crap. And I've heard it from the other side of people talking about my brewery that way. I've heard it from people who love my brewery talking about other beers, and I'm probably guilty of it myself. A couple of the breweries that you talked about earlier, you didn't say the names of the breweries. I think I knew both of them immediately when you said it, and I don't think of those breweries very highly. And I've been vocal about it in my friend group about their quality, what I could picture to be their quality of beer. So once again, people in glass houses probably shouldn't throw stones. I am guilty of all these things, but it does worry me in a shrinking business that we seem to be more marginalized on what we are actually enjoy about the business.
Yeah, people in glass houses should absolutely throw glass. They have plenty of it, and it can hurt. But yeah, this man, I wish that I had the brain capacity to write like what I have viewed as the transition of this industry over the last decade plus, uh, because there's there was this kind of punk rock vibe to things back in the day, like when we first were getting into it, of like this is an indie thing, this is something that not a whole lot of people know about, and it was fun within the circle to try new stuff, to search out new stuff, and then some people took it more seriously than others, obviously, with the rarity type of thing. And now, as it has matured, the industry, I feel like the brands that are doing it right are some of those punk bands that still exist today and have rolled with the times and have found like, hey, being able to balance right between what you did back then and what you need to do in order to stay alive has been paramount. And like it I want to go further into that by like talking about what we wanted to talk about as a topic today, but Tim's still not here. But
we're also an hour into the show, so
yeah. So
we've created
one
a whole
quick
new show,
real
which is great.
thing is that like I really think that breweries, for at least what I see in with myself, people that we kind of hang out with a bit from like other parents from kids at daycare and my friends, is like these breweries, and I think breweries more so, have become these meeting places for people in the communities, and they are third places that it doesn't really matter too much about the beer. It's just that it is a local place that is locally owned, and creating a product that, hey, we enjoy, that caters to us and is welcoming to us parents, and be like, bring your kids, have a good time, enjoy our products. And I think that places like that have become important, and breweries that embrace that and cater to that, I think are going to be the ones that fully work. And if I were building a brewery today, like I would be hyper local focused on things and wanting to sell as much beer out of my door as possible to direct to consumer, and creating a space that is welcoming and inviting to people of all different walks of life, as long as you're not being a fuckhead and trying to start shit with other people. But like, I want families. I want your dogs out on my patio, as long as they're on a fucking leash and you're being a chill dog owner. Like all these cliche things that are on social media about breweries, like, oh, your fucking kids running around the brewery. Like, I don't give a fuck about that. Like, I like, or let me take that back. Rewind. Yeah, I don't want kids fucking running around the brewery. I don't want my kids running around a fucking brewery. And I love when places have created spaces that are good for having kids. Like when we go to Civil Society's West Palm Beach location, they have a whole outdoor area that is like perfect for the kids. And it basically is like a daycare on Fridays, after hours, like during the happy hour time. Like go there, you're going to see a bunch of people with their kids out on that outside area. Like we've met up with some of the boys' friends' parents there for beers, and the kids just run around on the AstroTurf out there. And it's not really AstroTurf, it's just that fake grass. But like they have a good time. They're not in anyone's way because it's all parents out there, and we get to have a beer, unwind, grab some food from the food truck or a restaurant nearby. It's like those third places are so important to us right now, and the people who don't want to deal with it are inside having a great time for themselves. Like that to me are places that get it and are going to work, is the ones who are just open to everyone, and just you know what, you come on, families, everything, come. I'm babbling right now, but I think you kind of get the point, of just creating a meeting house place for a brewery, and make good beer, be open to your community, and basically that's it. But I get that there's financials on top of that, but we're not going to get too deep into that.
No, we can kind of go into that topic because that was the planned topic for today. But obviously, Tim wasn't able to join us. But to kind of put a bow on what I was asking you earlier, which kind of turned this into a whole new topic for a show. Thankfully, we got something maybe relatively entertaining for you folks. But my question was really around how have you viewed, has the industry changed? Has the mentality of the drinker changed? Is it that there are just less of us and less people into craft beer? That's why the industry's going down, or has the mentality changed? And I still to this day, I just really enjoy it, and I want to be around people who enjoy it too. Whereas if someone opens a bottle of beer at the end of the bar because the bar said it's okay, y- even if it's a beer you've had before, you're kind of excited to have that beer and share it with somebody, instead of this mentality of like, oh, I wouldn't drink that. And I guess the tail end of the time I was going to a lot of beer bars, I was seeing more and more of that. Whereas when I met you, Mike, and I met Phil, and I met Blake, and I met Brian, and I met Chung from Coffee District for the first time, Ryan Sense, my old boss at Funky, we bonded over being excited about new things, and we learned a lot about it. I mean, we were well-informed consumers. But if, for instance, Brian Torres showed up at Coffee District for a bottle share for the first time and brought a Rogue Hazelnut Brown, which all of us had had 1,000 times because Chung said, "Oh, go to Total Wine, buy a bottle of beer, and bring it to the share." You know, Chris Black was bringing out Tactical Nuclear Penguin, and he got 2 bottles in a secret trade, and we all looked at those 2 beers like they were, not they were quote unquote equal, but we were happy that Brian could try that beer and bring a Rogue Hazelnut Brown because he didn't know what kind of bottle share he was getting into, because Rogue Hazelnut Brown is delicious. And we're happy to have a sip of that beer and share it along with everything else, instead of being like, oh, this beer.
Well,
You
to be honest, some of those people did do they're turning their nose up at
Yes.
sort of stuff. Like, and it happened to me specifically. I remember bringing a bottle of the Monk's Flemish Red,
Mhm.
and that, like, Chris and Eric turning their noses up at that, and you being like, "I've had this before. I don't really like it, but I appreciate you bringing it." And like, and trying some, and you're like, "Yep, I still don't like it." And like, it's about being accepting of those people, like, like not expecting. And I don't even remember when early on I was in all of that, but like obviously that still rings in my mind, that I can remember some specifics of that. But it was some of that bullshit that, like, made me be like, I don't want to be like that to other people, and this, with coming into this, because I don't want to turn people off immediately from something that I so much enjoy and love.
Well, and here's the thing, and listen, I have a lot of respect for Chris, and Eric, the 2 people you mentioned, because they shared a lot of great beer with me over the years. They were never, I mean, I went to Chris's birthday parties and stuff. I haven't seen him in 15 years. It's been a long time. But I really appreciate his friendship when I had it. But there's a reason why you became my best friend. And there's a reason why Phil and I worked together. And it's a reason why, even though Brian Tonneson or Blake Panicella were never like close buddies, every time I see them, I enjoy their company. It's because these were the people that were interested in this and sharing this, and they weren't looking at it as a competition, and they weren't looking at it in that way. And those were the people that I gravitated towards. And to this day, if you save a beer for me or tell me, hey, you got to pick up this new pack because Bell's or whatever it is, put this beer out, I'm like, oh man, I'm on top of it. I got to go try it because I know Mike's palate, and he has a great palate, and he wouldn't recommend something to me I wouldn't like. And that those things are those relationships are still being formed, and there's still people doing it. But I just worry that there's less and less of that, and there's more of the sought after stuff. And like I said, the teams that we're all joined on to, and there we are, and there we shall stay. And I hope there's an underground that I'm not seeing because I'm a an angry old man that are still loving the new Sierra Nevada release, or talking as poetically as we do about like massively produced beers that we just absolutely adore, because they're still good even though they're everywhere.
It's a funny thing for me to be able to say is the last two, and I have bought two 12 packs of cans in the last 2 weeks, and there hasn't been an ounce of alcohol in any of those cans. I bought, well, I guess technically 0.5, but in one of them, I bought Sierra Nevada's NA 12 pack. I was like, shit, like it's got the hazy IPA and the Bruvesa, which are NA beers from them that I have never had before, and the Bruvesa is exclusive to the pack. So I'm like, it was at my Publix. I'm like, I'm getting this. And then I got a 12 pack of THC, the Trail Magic that both you and Tim have spoken of, and I still haven't tried the berry basil one, but so far your ranking is dead on. That half and half is excellent. The margarita is really good. The mimosa was okay. But like, man, these NA drinks, and that's a thing too. If I were opening up, like, I would get my foot at least into an in-house version of some other drink, and like, because I think that these THC things are just really intriguing me, because the first few that I've tried, you had some good, some bad, but man, that Trail Magic stuff tastes so good. Like,
Yeah,
that half and half, I could drink. I mean, I shouldn't drink it all day, but unless I want to be Jim Brewer. But
I have seen you stoned out of your mind, and it's hilarious. So I highly recommend that you do that. Mike, it's getting a little bit late. My dad's in the other room. I want to go hang out with him as much as possible. So I think we should go home. What do you think? And seeing as Tim
sure.
never joined, it would be really great if Tim came in for the last like second and just said hi, and then we cut away. That would be a really fun little Easter egg. We'll see if we could do that in post.
Sure, let's do that. So let's head into last call, the point in time where we give each other a unspecific amount of time to talk about whatever it is that we want, beverage related or not. The only rules are that it is uninterrupted, unopposed, unobjected. Kevin, what's your last call?
So, Mike, I'm going to steal your thunder. You told me you were going to talk about baseball in your last call. It just came out in casual conversation before. I'm going to say something about baseball, but it's a very specific thing, and I hope doesn't trample your idea. Spencer Torkelson is a first baseman / DH for the Tigers. He was a 1-1 pick. So for those of you who don't know, he was the first pick of the first round. He was drafted as a third baseman. He was thought to be like the next Barry Bonds, for the lack of a better term. He was a massive power hitter, and they thought he was a generational talent. He was going to hit for average, hit for power. He was quickly moved to first base because he couldn't handle third, and he started slowly and kind of was underwhelming. He had a really great September a couple years ago. He hit 30 home runs in a season, and then last year he ended up sitting set down to AAA. He hit so poorly. And everyone was so down on him, and everyone was so pissed off because he didn't live up to his expectations and yada, yada, yada. He was unlikely to even make the roster, and he was probably going to start this year in AAA, if not be traded. He had an incredible spring, hit, I think, 5 home runs, hit over 300 with like 1,000 OPS, and he made the team. And he made the team despite the fact they moved one of their best hitters from second base to first base because they didn't think he could handle it and that he was going to be on the team. And the reason why I'm saying this is because I'm a big Spencer Torkelson fan. I'm a big Tigers fan. And a lot of us get down on these players and we act like they like kind of owe us something because we follow the team and they don't hit as well, so we're mad, and then we don't go to the World Series because that damn Spencer Torkelson couldn't hit. The dude didn't choose to be a 1-1 pick. He busted his ass, was an incredible prospect, and they picked him. Whether he was going to make the transition and be a great all-time player or not, that he's doing his best to make that happen. And for people to get mad at the guy when he's out there trying his best, I get it in the moment, but realistically, he's doing everything he can. I'm just really happy he's going to make the opening day roster. I think it's a reminder that these are just human beings. They're trying their best. They're putting in the best effort they can. He is hopefully going to have a great season, help the Tigers win a lot of ball games. But there's a statistic out there that, and I'll butcher this, but the spirit is correct, that every single person to ever play in a major league game in the history of Major League Baseball could fit in the stands of the smallest major league ballpark with a lot of room to spare. Think about that for a second. It is so rare that anyone has even the whisper of talent that it takes to get to that level of any way, shape, or form. Guys that are playing that cap out at AA were the best baseball player that's ever come out of their city. Excuse me. Or ever will. This is rarefied air. These people are the best athletes in the world, and they deserve our respect and our appreciation. And I'm just, for all the Spencer Torkelsons out there, for all the guys that didn't make it, that played AAA ball and had these high expectations and flamed out, I have a great deal of respect for anyone who can stand up to that pressure, work their asses off, and try to live their dream. I think it's wonderful.
Yeah, Kevin completely stepped on my toes here because I was going to talk about the Angels releasing former 1-1 Mickey Moniak yesterday, who is a former Philly. Phillies drafted him 1-1 back in 2016. No, that wasn't what I was going to talk about.
I thought you were going to say you were going to talk about Spencer Torkelson.
It allowed me to pigeonhole that in there. But baseball season's back, baby. I wasn't super stoked on the offseason for the Phillies. I thought that there could have been some more work done on fixing the lineup. For a team that was the number 2 team in the NL East last year to say you need to fix is a very Philly thing to do, but there are some issues with discipline at the plate. They made the pitching staff better, I feel like, by picking up Jesus Luzardo from the Marlins, who, as long as he can stay healthy and pitch well, he has the potential of being a number 2, number 3 pitcher, and he's currently kind of like the number 5 guy right now. But they shored up the bullpen a little bit more, and I hate to say I'm cautiously optimistic, but I'm looking forward to another season of Philadelphia Phillies baseball, and seeing where this team goes. There's some people on this team that I absolutely fucking adore. Like, to say that, 10 years ago, you're going to be a fan of Bryce Harper, I would have told you to go fuck yourself. But the man is a master of pandering to the Philly audience, and he knows what he's doing, and I love him for it. Kyle Schwarber, I love that the dude hits bombs, and Zach Wheeler is one of the best pitchers in baseball, and Jose Alvarado throws the ball harder than most people can in their entire. There's probably like 50 people that can throw the ball harder than him in the entire world. But I'm looking forward to baseball, man. Yeah, like we won a Super Bowl in Philly, so awesome, go Birds! But now it's time for go Phils, and let's try to fucking win a World Series this year. I would absolutely love to see a Tigers Phillies World Series, so that Kevin and I can have a little friendly wager against themselves. And the Tigers showed some really good signs last year. And they have one of the best pitchers in all of baseball right now. So let's make it happen. World universe.
I'll do my best, Mike. I'll do my part.
You want to plug anything, Kev?
You know what? Copper Point has a anniversary party coming up in a couple months, I believe. I think I saw a date. I won't quote it because it'll be wrong, but I forget that that Copper Point turns 10 the same year that Barrel of Monks turns 10. So I'm going to do my best to make it. I know I don't get a chance to come out to too many events, and I've got responsibilities, but I think I'm going to try to come out there. So if you live in the Florida area, the South Florida area, you should come out to a fine brewery to celebrate an anniversary.
May 10th.
Thank you.
Oh, that would be great to see. I really wish that I could have gotten to your anniversary, but family stuff. Having 2 kids and grandparents, like every weekend is dedicated to a grandparent in some way, shape, or form.
Sure.
But excuse me. If you want to follow me on social, I'm at Mike Loves Beer on places. And if you want to follow the show, we are at United We Drink on places as well. United We Drink pod on some places, depending on which place. But the most important thing is you listen to the show on your favorite podcast service, whether that be Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Overcast, Podcast Addict, wherever fine podcasts are found, as I like to say. If you want to support the show financially, you can go to our website, unitedwedrink.com, go to the Brands We Love page, and you can click on some of those links, such as Trade Coffee, Made in Cookware. I got an awesome new nonstick pan from them recently. You click on any of those, buy stuff from them, and we get a little kickback. It's a nice way of helping to support the show.
I just
Kevin
want
wants to say something.
Please buy stuff from Made In Cookware so Mike doesn't have to keep buying. His entire house is just boxes, it's pots, it's pans, it's different kinds of cutlery, and he does it because he has to support a sponsor. But if you guys do it, his wife will be a happier person because you won't have to move pots and pans to get to the milk in the fridge.
We keep pots and pans in the fridge. It makes them nice and cold. There's something to this. I've heard
you have no other choice. The cabinets are full. The counters are stacked. It is. He was on an episode of Hoarders, for crying out loud. Please, people, buy Made in Cookware. Yes.
Other than that, we'll be back in a couple of weeks with another new episode. Thank you, everyone, once again, for whenever you keep on coming back. Thank you, Jim. We'll see you next time. Cheers.
Cheers.